Hey, welcome. This is Dr. John Bush for the process. That's me. We are getting to, actually, I think it's Snaps Report week 8, but we're going into week 9. And so I need to change that, don't I? Yeah. Okay. So let's continue hitting the data here, and you can follow along. We're getting to that point in the season where I think a lot of the snap leaders, these kind of things, are fairly settled and known by most. Okay. The only time where there's change is if there's an injury or some type of, dramatic situation. Okay. Which we've seen in COVID as well. So I'm switching kind of more to, well, I kind of know the main amount of information, the main players, to is there a new pecking order? In other words, is there somebody, the handcuff to the handcuff kind of concept? Is there somebody new on the scene? What's going on? And just trying to spot that so we can stockpile before. And so it's going to be murky. It's not going to, the data is not going to hit us over the head, okay? Because if it did, everybody would know it, right? So it gets pretty hard at this point to have a firm footing on some of these deeper players, right? It's going to be squishy. And that is kind of the mental side, which is another lesson or two. And you can check out my classroom. I have 100 lessons from preseason. I do some kind of a psychological game, and there are things I haven't put in there. And you can also catch me on the Science of Fantasy podcast that me and D. Mike do. And he's a meteorologist, so you have two scientists there looking around and not doing their usual discussions by any means. So anyway, I think that's the lens we're going to start looking at, on the snaps. So I do want to say that. Shh. My dog. Hey, quit looking at that. Quit barking. Quit barking at that. Something under the couch. So I also do like to confirm using snaps, tendencies of teams to use positions more than others. So I do keep that running just in case things are changing. Is the landscape changing? I don't think it is, but it might be. Okay, so let's move on, but just keep that in the back of your mind that the data switches. And I think things like matchups and things are going to be probably more important, and they're going to shift and have clues about your lineups are going to be kind of really important versus kind of snaps. So first thing I like to do every week is determine the average of team snaps. And what I've done, and I haven't seen any other site doing this, okay, or anybody, I'm sure there are people out there, snaps per second. That includes overtime and the time of offense. So I think it's important to think about the speed at which teams are rolling. There is some evidence, statistical significance evidence, that teams that are slower tend to rush more than teams that are faster. but there's not a lot of difference in passing, which is interesting. And there's probably some deeper secrets still. So I sorted the teams by speed of snaps per second. The teams that are the fastest were in the deep green there, the Detroit, Philadelphia, the Rams, Jacksonville, Dallas, and the Chargers. So there's going to be less running in those and actual rushing versus pass catching out of the backfield for the running back kind of thing. That's different. You have to separate the rushing and the pass catching from the running backs there. And then the teams that are probably doing less of that, believe it or not, New Orleans, which is surprising, given they have Kamara. That's what they're doing. Baltimore, Green Bay is just rushing. Cleveland's doing the rush. Of course, Tennessee was with Henry, so that will be an interesting thing to see. Does Tennessee speed up their snaps per second and that will indicate they're moving to a different style of offense. Denver, Carolina, Miami. That's why Gaskins is still having a role there, and then the Raiders. So that's kind of the extremes, if you look at it, and then here are the team snaps. And again, that can get a little muddled because of the overtime and these kind of things. So I really like snaps per second as my mainstay metrics here on team speed. I plotted the average of team snaps in the yellow triangles here, you can see. And kind of the average is about right here where the pink line is. So you can kind of see teams above and below. So there's really some extremes above and below. And then the line is snaps per second. So the slow teams versus the speedier teams here, if you look at that. And you kind of have a level, and then you kind of slowly hit that. So it looks to me like there's some really interesting teams from the Chargers up, but at that point at Atlanta, there's not a lot big difference from Tampa Bay. There's a step down and a step down, but it's really, if you look at it, it's not a big change. We do see a drop, kind of the bottom falls out at this point. So just kind of keep this in the back of your mind. It's not just completely linear. It's almost a stepping, stepwise decrease there. So I use that data just to kind of think about the rushing of teams more than passing. So I think the teams that are slower, the depth of the running backs are going to pay a little bit more dividends than maybe the depths on the faster teams if they're rusher types. So you need to kind of separate that out a little bit from the rushing and the pass catching types. The next level is probably fairly set by now, but it can change. I think Tennessee, we're going to see a change. But anyway, what we have here is positional speed, and we see Arizona, Atlanta, Baltimore, and Buffalo. So each figure that we'll quickly go through will be teams of 4, and we'll look at the running back, tight end, and wide receiver. So I have a colorized chart. And then here's the sum of the snaps per second of all the running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. So I include everybody, not just the number ones. Okay, so I like the whole view of the team here. And then I use that to calculate usage, okay, percent usage. And then Because to me, when I tell you 59%, what does that mean to you? Well, that sounds high, but 59, I guess 100% is really high. Well, as we know, no team is just going to do wide receivers. So I use something called usage scale scores, and I take each position and scale it from high to low. So it turns out that 59% league-wise is 100%, or should be rated 100. So Arizona is doing and the wide receivers at the highest level in the complete league. Okay, so that's going to require a Murray being on his game. Okay, injury could change that. Okay, and he's battling some issues this week. On the other hand, if we use the scaled score, see, that's kind of where I look at, and we see that the tight end usage is at basically 1.6%. Okay, 50 times less. Okay, and the running backs, 10 times less. So Arizona's putting all its snaps into the running backs, the wide receivers. So just be aware that that's occurring. Atlanta, it's all about your tight end. And so the running back, their wide receivers have been a mess and continue to be a mess. The fact that they've won so many games with having an 8% score of wide receivers is almost unheard of. So this is almost the worst in the league. Baltimore, their runners, their rushers, oh yes they are, 96. On the other hand, look at Buffalo, basically the worst in the league. So here's a team like Arizona. It's all about the pass. A little bit of tight end, but not a lot. So here's Arizona. Here's Buffalo. They look a lot alike. Look at Baltimore and how the running backs here, and this is just percent usage. This is not the scaled score. So the scaled score would be even more strange looking. But this just, tabulates. Almost every team is going to be using its wide receivers more. But when you scale it, you start seeing the big differences there. So I urge you to figure that out a little bit. Tight ends in Carolina are used more than you might think. In fact, that's a surprising number, but they're not doing anything with it. The wide receivers could be better, but 61's not bad. Chicago's 63. The tight end right there, Cole Kmet. I don't know why he's not producing. I'm still a mystery to me. Cincinnati's doing well. Cleveland is really using its tight end. Look at 96 percentiles. So that's almost the top in the league. Okay, so you cannot ignore Njoku or Hooper. They are viable streamers as long as that is there. So that, if you need a surprise streamer, I definitely look at them. And this is just the plotting of all that. And again, you're going to see wide receivers being the tops. It is rare that a team is not going to have wide receivers at the top of the usage. Score-wise, Dallas is using their tight end a lot. 55 is not bad. Denver, using it. Detroit's not. So if you wonder why Hawkinson is underperforming, the snaps per second that they're giving him is not really high. Okay, so is that because the team just can't? The quarterback won't? Something is not right there. Hockenson, this number should not be this low. Okay, so if you ever wonder, well, why isn't my whatever not doing well or doing really good? Sometimes these scores can kind of help you read the tea leaves here. Green Bay could be doing better. Tanyan was out, so Mercedes Lewis. So I am on occasion using him now. Right here, 55. Anything above 50% gets my attention. If Fant can't go, I'm using the guy. Is a long name underneath. I apologize. I don't know. And if Schultz gets hurt, then Jarwin is going to get my attention. So you can almost make predictions on the value of the person underneath based on these scaled usages. So this is good metrics to keep track of. And of course, I'll update this every week. This is, again, just how teams are distributing the snaps per second. Houston has been using the tight ends a lot, not been using their running backs. Look at Jacksonville. James Robinson, you wonder, can you imagine if he'd be getting the same attention that, say, Baltimore gives its rushing game? Goodness. It's all about the pass there, 80%. Look at that. Kelsey at 50%, 49. You wonder what could, if that score was higher. I don't know. You can almost see why is that Houston is doing better than Kelsey. So that Kelsey's doing well, that should really, it should almost be a handicap factor here. You know, and I'm probably off season. I'll probably try to explore that a little bit. Nothing really dramatic here. Scaled score. Jared Cook is viable. And if he gets hurt, then the guy underneath is still viable. Not like the Rams. Okay, it's all about the wide receivers there. And their running backs, even though you think they're using them, they're really not. The Raiders are the most interesting team. Look at this distribution. They're actually using their tight ends more. So they have problems. They don't have any dominant wide receivers. So they're having to use their running backs and tight ends much more. Miami, can you imagine if Gaskins had 44 versus a 2%? Gesicki. Why is Gesicki doing so? Well, look at it. They're dropping all the eggs in his basket here versus the wide receivers. Again, a strange kind of situation. Very interesting if you use scaled scores. They tell the story versus just traditional usage metrics. Minnesota, using Cook, pretty good, but 40%, it could be higher. New England's using pretty good. New Orleans, it's all about Kamara. Look at that, 100%. Whereas the wide running backs and the Giants, 9%. That's weak. Weak sauce. I keep hoping Ingram wakes up here. 59, 60% gets my attention. New Orleans, you would think something was going to happen, but it just really hadn't put it together yet. Look at Henry. Henry's been doing pretty good with 38% of the show. Not good. The Jets, they're not using their wide running backs. It's wide receivers here. Philadelphia's not using. Pittsburgh, Seattle, underutilized running backs in snaps per second. Not so good. Not so good. Nothing here. San Francisco loves to rush. Can you tell? 77. That's why when you hear people, oh, San Francisco rushing, well, they may not quite know all that, but somehow they've got, and probably other metrics, but to me, it just slaps you in the face right here. Wow, that's neat versus Tampa Bay. Look at the difference there. Okay. And Washington, I thought Logan Thomas was okay and Ricky Seals-Jones, but 29. Tennessee really is missing Jonnu Smith, right? I'm just telling you, they made a mistake getting rid of him. Nothing dramatic there. Okay, so that was a 10-cent tour. I would look at the scaled scores to get tendencies, probably take some note cards down and just write those down, maybe a plus or a minus kind of situation. And maybe I should have done that figure, but anyway, you guys can do it. So if we look at the snaps per second and the scores, so I give you both to look at, but to me, this is what I'm interested in. So New Orleans, Baltimore, and then look at the drop down. So look how the league is using, and then 72. So it's probably, I probably should have recalibrated the data here on this a little bit, because this is not a normal distribution at all with the data. Not even close. But it sure shows you the dramatic nature of these three teams here. Atlanta's number 4, New England, Raiders, and Minnesota. And then look, wow, bam. Look at the ones that are weekly using their running backs by, again, snaps per second. So I'm liking the running backs underneath here. They are of strong interest to me. These are of lesser interest. And here's the usage scale that way. If you look at percent usage, and again, see how it's not as, to me, this is much more dramatic here. Showing, and people talk about tiers, so I would put tier 1 here, tier 2, tier 3, maybe tier 4, and then you'd have to kind of almost everybody else here. I mean, you'd have to kind of break them a little bit here, maybe right there be tier 5 and then tier 6, but it really, this is not a normal distribution at all in the data. Here's the tight end. Here's the hot dogs, teams using them. That should get a lot of your attention here. Here's the concerns right here. I know Arizona went out and got Ertz, so remember this data is including Max Williams. You know, it's the first 8 weeks, so Ertz is going to change. Okay, Arizona's going to move up here, but this is what's happening now. Look at Hawkinson. So sad. Logan Thomas. Look at Kittle. Well, he's hadn't been around a lot, so I'm hoping that goes up. But anyway, you can track Andrews. He'll have, you ever wonder why he's variable? Well, they're just not investing in them by snaps per second, if you think about it as snaps per second. Here's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6. Arizona's sucky that way. Here's wide receivers. Look at all these, the top 3 here. Arizona, Buffalo, Raiders. Rams. You want depth on their wide receivers. Oh, yeah. I mean, even down to the third or fourth is worth your time. Okay, probably in here as well. New Orleans needs to pull itself out. Maybe things will change. I don't know. Atlanta's been doing piss poor. Cleveland, sad. Baltimore and OBJ. He's sitting there looking at these saying, come on, man. Third worst in the league in snaps per second. I'm not staying with that team. You wonder why he's leaving? There's your number right there. Cleveland is not investing in the wide receivers. San Francisco, the Rams, Miami, Baltimore are not. These teams are. So if you're playing PPR, upper teams are getting more of my attention than these lower teams here, big time. And look at the usage scale. You see 40%, you think, well, 40%. No, that's one. Here's 100 times better in Arizona. You see how this tends to really make the numbers jump. And that's part, when you look at metrics, if you just looked at this, it's only 19% difference. It doesn't seem as dramatic as when you manipulate and scale it accordingly. Okay, that it gets my attention big time. Somebody says New Orleans is 1. Arizona is 100%. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Where do I want to invest my time in the wide receivers? Things like daily fantasy sports, this kind of stuff is probably, and I suspect the big boys and girls are having this kind of metrics to really parse out the data. Okay? They're not using the same old metrics you are. I mean, I wouldn't be if I was trying to make some serious money in daily fantasy. And here's just if you plot the scale score. What's interesting to me is the wide receivers are not as dramatic as the tight ends and running backs on how they're doing things, which is interesting. There's some secrets to that. The fact that it is closer and not as kind of off kilter if you look at the plots of the running backs and tight ends. So there's probably some secrets there on how we approach that next season. I'll have to work on that. Okay, so I did make a little chart. This is a way to do it. Here's the first 16 just by alphabet. And so now, and I'll have this in my article, you guys can get a sense for the scoring. And for if I was doing daily fantasy sports, I would definitely use this as a tiebreaker and as a way to maybe find stacks and these kind of things. So, you know, we've seen these numbers. It just, I put them in this way, right? So you guys can check it out. And I plotted them for you if you want RB, tight end, and running back, wide receiver in blue, red, and green. So you can look at each team that way. Here's Arizona. You think like their wide receivers or what? Here's Atlanta. They love their tight end in Atlanta. Here's Baltimore. They love their running backs. That kind of thing. So you could go that way. Here's wide receivers. Carolina, wide receivers, tight ends. Chicago, a lot like that. Cincinnati, going here. Cleveland's all about the rushing. That's why OBJ's leaving. Look at this. Wide receivers down here. They're even, you know, they're below the running backs and the tight ends. He's like, come on, man. And you can take a look at this. It's neat when you plot this. Here's the second 16. And you can see all the defects, if you want to call it that, and the biases. These are not biases in the sense that, oh, this is a little bit higher or lower. This is dramatic numbers when you use my scaled scores. I really love this. Just take these two and just stare at them. Take your cell phone, take a picture of this, okay, and just use it, okay? Have fun. That's why I put it out there for you to see. Metrics not presented correctly and in the way that's impactful is a waste of your time. And a lot of the websites just flick stuff together and it's not impactful. To me, this is as impactful as I can make it. Okay, so glad those few of you that are listening to me figure that out. That's when I say I want to imagine myself a data artist. That's what I'm trying to do, have an impact with the visual. Okay, and just long reams of numbers is not impactful to me. I love this. This is so pretty. Of course, I like dramatic colors and the visual side. So take a look at that. It'll be in the article and you can check it out. Now we're getting to the team by team. And I sorted by the average player snap per second. And so the player list is the high to the low. Okay, so we will kind of jauntily go through this because you can go and look at this. And another thing I did, I looked at the differences in the last few weeks versus the preceding few weeks. I think it's weeks 6 to 8 versus 3 to 5. So recent changes. So I'm kind of moving away from the first couple weeks and trying to track this. So, thing that jumps out to me, Connor's being underutilized recently. Edmonds is not going away. Ertz, look at this number. This is Max Williams number. So I think Arizona's Ertz is going to do pretty good there. That's a nice number. And I colorize these numbers. AJ Green, number 1 at Arizona. Who would have thought? I mean, I know him and Hopkins are close. Just want to let you know, I understand maybe all we can do, we cannot predict touchdowns. Okay. But I think more opportunities, the more snaps the players getting per second, you would think that's more opportunities per second. That's the idea anyway. Kurt's number 3. Rhonda Moore fades in, fades out because he's tight end, touchdown dependent. Because he's 4th on the pecking order. You can only go down so far, folks. Okay. And this is showing who's increasing here. Ertz there. Take a look at it. See what you think. It's Davis and the Patterson show. Davis is getting more snaps per second, but Patterson's having a hellacious impact. Pitts, but Hurst is there. If something happens to Pitts, what's the value of Hurst on a team that all in on their tight end? People should stockpile in a deep bench Hurst. Russell Gage and Sharp last week. Don't know if Ridley's coming back. Sharp has been, he's going to be potentially the one or the two, folks. Get him on the waiver wires. I think he can still be had. On a deep bench only, not a shallow bench. Deep bench, grab him all day long, all day sucker, all day long. Go for it. Gage is back. Hey, he could be 1 or 2. He's going to get some attention. So don't just discard him on the trash heap. Patrick Ricard is the pass catching, but the rusher is probably Murray based on this data. But Freeman, because I think Murray was hurt, so I don't know if Freeman goes back and Murray takes over. It's unclear to me. It's all about Andrews, all about Hollywood. Bateman, everybody's talking. He's coming in at number 2, folks. I'm sure he's gone, but if he's still out there. Watkins, he's still number 1, ahead of Bateman, but I think, and somebody say, oh, Bateman's going to pass him. I'm looking. So far, the first 4 weeks, Bateman hadn't arrived yet. He could arrive this next couple weeks, but yeah, I think if I had Watkins, I'd probably want to get out of the Watkins business since Bateman's back. All about the Moss. Sometimes Singletary's there, sometimes he's not. Okay, so he's a hard person to have. You got to have him for depth only. Sweeney got the attention, just didn't score. But if Knox is out, he's worthy of a D pickup. Sanders, Diggs, Beasley are all viable, folks. And even Davis is starting. He's going to be touchdown dependent, but he could be in there. If somebody's injured, Gabriel moves up. So, if you really believe in Buffalo, and I do, Davis is worthy of a handcuff wide receiver stash. Go get him now. Hubbard's days may be numbered. So, you know, smoke him if you got him. Freeman, I'm not sure that ship's coming in. The tight ends have not done it for you. Moore, Anderson's still getting play. He's just not turning it in. Marshall may be getting back. You think maybe he could mature and pass Anderson? I don't know. He would be a very deep speculation ad for later in the season. Okay? I've got him in a few, just keeping him. Montgomery, I think, is coming off IR. That limits Herbert, so he'll go back to being a handcuff. Okay, enjoy him when you got him. Cole Kmet, he's getting the attention, but not the scores. I think James got the touchdown, so that was sad if you're a Kmet owner. Mooney, Robinson, but they're just not turning it into points. I don't know what's Chicago. I would not be investing too deep in the wide receivers. It's all about the mixing. P. Ryan is worthy of keeping as a handcuff. Uzama should be rostered. Chase, Boyd, and Higgins. Looks like it's like Buffalo. So it's just unclear. The data would say Tate is the number, the injury handcuff, but I don't know how he disappeared last week, so I assume he's injured. So I don't know if he's worthy of a pickup or not. Chubb came back. He's done better. But he's had a week 2 performance, so I guess you'll get from Ernst is definitely the handcuff until Hunt comes back. So Ernst was a rental, and you know, definitely if you're a dynasty, you want to keep him. These guys are almost on par with each other most weeks, and it's just who gets the touchdown, but they're both potentially viable as a deep streamer. Landry really picked it up. He's not on the team anymore. I guess People Jones could be another surprise. Then Higgins. So people may have dropped Jones. He might be a stash. So go grab him. Elliott. It's all about the Elliott. Schultz. Jarwin's clearly the backup because of the attention the tight end's getting. Lamb, Cooper. Wilson's a 3 until Gallup comes back, I think. So he might be worth a deep touchdown play in daily fantasy. Gordon's not going away. People keep wishing for Javonte to. It's just right now, unless Gordon's injured, it's just not going to happen. Okay, it's going to take something else to really make that happen. Fant, if Fant can't go with COVID, then Albert is the play. Stash him. If you're a fan owner, get Albert right now. Pause this and go get Albert. Sutton, Patrick, Jerry, Judy's back. Number 1 was Patrick, then Sutton, and then Judy. Does Patrick take a back seat? He's really been involved. Even week 1 when Judy was there, I think that Judy may have upside, but I don't know. Patrick may actually be on the waiver wire. It's probably worth a grab in a deep bench. We're swiftly going Swift here. Love him. I don't know what's going on. Williams, he has just not been doing it. I noticed these two popped up when Williams wasn't. So I kind of like Jefferson as a deep stash. So I've been stashing him. Hockenson, they're just not using him like they need to. Benson popped up out of nowhere. A couple weeks before it was Hodge, so it's just, I don't know if there's enough meat on the bone here. I guess these would be the two I would have. I'm not rushing out to get them, but if you need a streamer, they may be a streamer. I think Detroit's on bye this week, maybe. Yeah. Jones and Dillon. People talking about Dillon. He's not going to pass Jones yet. Tanyan, I think, is he hurt now? So is it Lewis? I think so. Go get Lewis. I think Scantling should be coming off, but when him and Lazard traded 1-2, so I think it's Adams and then these two guys. Cobb had his day, didn't he? Don't know about these two. I guess if Love has been practicing with these guys, maybe they may have more value just this week until Rodgers gets back. Don't know. It's going to be an interesting week there. I would tend to be cautious on playing St. Brown or Winfrey or Cobb or Scantling. Lazard maybe. Adams, yeah, for sure. But I don't know. There's a lot of murkiness yet. Is this real? Is Rex going to be the dog now that Ingram's gone? It's very strange. I don't know. This is a lot of murkiness to me. If I was a David Johnson owner, I would not be pleased to have seen this week here. I don't know how to play this. I would probably, if I've got Johnson, I would hold, but I would not be grabbing Burkhead I think we need another week. And if he is the lead dog, of course, then again, it may be too late, right? So I guess your situation, how desperate is it? If you got to have folks next couple weeks, he might be worth a stash and hold. Akins, he's a good streamer to me this week. I'm going with him on a couple of places. I've got to have somebody. Cooks, and I think Collins and Amendola. So I do like Collins. I'm stashing him. Amendola might come back. I think it's going to be Cooks and then maybe these two. Conley, has he seen his day? It's like he's been declining here. I don't know. Taylor, Cox and Doyle been getting lots of time. I would play Cox, but Doyle is there as well, and Kenta touch. These are deep plays. Pittman's all about Pittman and Pascal. Hilton's had to be in. I've actually got rid of him in a few places, but I think Pascal and Pittman is the gotta-haves. Robinson, don't know. I guess Hyde and then Dare is the handcuff to the handcuff if Robinson can't make it. Arnold's been doing well, so he's a play. Notice he really stepped up when Robinson went. So if we don't see Robinson, don't think he practiced. Today is Thursday. So he might be a surprise streamer. Jones, Chenault, and Agnew now. Look at that. Agnew beat Chenault. So it is unclear to me, other than Jones, which one to grab. I've grabbed Agnew in a few places because Chenault was not available. He's a gamble streamer. Go get him. Williams until Solaire's back, I guess. Yeah. Kelsey, gotta have Kelsey. Hill, and then you pick the ones. Pick your number two. The water is muddled. I do know that Gordon did the best of the 4 weeks. People hadn't been talking about him. He's starting to get as much play as Robinson. I think I'm going to go with avoid Gordon, but I do note that. Eckler, Roundtree's the handy. I don't know. I don't know who it is. Good luck. Cook, Adams, Williams, and I keep waiting. Guyton one day. He's obviously the injury handcuff only. On a deep bench, you might stash him. Henderson, Michelle, I think we see what this is going to be. Michelle is only viable if Henderson's hurt. So he's an injury handcuff that you can't play, basically. Higby's getting attention, just not getting the points. Woods and all these are starting to get muddled together. If Jefferson is out there, he needs to be owned. Drake and Jacobs, I think there was some injuries there with Jacobs, so I'm thinking once he's better, like hopefully this week, he'll come back to this kind of scenario and Drake will step back. We'll see. Drake's a good injury handcuff for sure. Foster Moreau is, if you have Waller, then you probably want to go ahead if you've got a deep bench and keep him. He's somebody you need to have. Ruggs will be out forever. He's off the team, so I guess it's Edwards and Renfro. And maybe Zay Jones is the 3. I don't know if there's enough to support a 3. I would invest in Edwards and Renfro as a deep play. Gaskin's not going away. I guess Ahmed is the number 2. It's hard to tell. Gersicki got a plane. Sheehan would be his injury handcuff. Parker Waddle, 1-2. That seems about right. I would take both those guys. Cook, Madison's the injury handcuff only, not playable otherwise. Conklin should be playable. Thielen, Jefferson, Osborne. He's definitely somebody you want. I would stockpile him. Harris and a muddled mess. Hunter Henry and Sanu. So I guess Henry, but Sanu is going potentially could eat into Henry's time. That is just never was the situation that I hoped it would end up, that Henry would be the dominant one, and it just hasn't happened. Myers and Aguilar, gotta have. Kamara and Montgomery, I guess, is the number 2 now. No, Ingram's coming in. Ingram will be the number 2. So if Ingram's out there, I think he's worthy of a pickup. You would think Troutman would be doing something, but it hasn't happened. Taquan Smith, he's still out there. Pick him up. Callaway, they got to throw to somebody. I'm not overly enthusiastic about them, but Booker until Barkley's back, and then Booker's a deep hold. Ingram, hoping he does what he needs to do. Slayton got a lot of play last time. I hear Galladay maybe come back. I don't think Shepard is this week. Tony should be moving back up. Pettis is injured, so I would probably play Tony. But Slayton could be a surprise in daily fantasy, or Galladay if he can make it back from injury. This is a real muddled mess, by the way. Michael Carter, yep. Croft is coming back, and he got some attention last week. So I guess if I'm streaming, I'm going here. Davis is probably out, so Crowder's the pickup. Mims and Cole. Moore hasn't broke through with having all these other options here. He's kind of fading. I would jettison him. Maybe Mims. They really liked him. They sure fit. He went from here to here. Look at that. He may be your deep play there. Boston Scott. People they thought Gainwell. Nope. I think it's Scott. Howard too. So I guess Scott over Howard, but Howard could continue. I don't know when Sanders is coming. Party until Sanders is back. Goddard got a plane. I did see this. I don't know where that came from. Jack stole some touchdown, some Goddard, I guess. Watkins is back. Rager got injured, so everything went to Watkins and Smith and Greg Ward. So if Rager's out, then I guess Watkins gets more attention, so he may be the pickup here. Smith has just not turned it into enough scoring. He's certainly getting plenty of opportunities. Harris, I did note that McFarland was back, and I did grab him in a few places for $1. So he was cheap. So I may have picked wrong, but you can't wait to, for the handcuff of Harris. I probably would go with him. Frymouth is the play here. Claypool and Johnson. I guess Washington remains hit or miss, so it's just these two guys you want to play. I guess Collins and then Homer until Carson's back. Penny's not the answer, but I didn't think he was. Everett, okay. Lockett and Freddie Swain and Metcalf. You pick Freddie Swain up. He's kind of like Osborne. You got to keep him just in case. Mitchell, got to have him till some of these other folks get back. Everybody thought Wally, did he get hurt? So this guy was. I think I would just find another streamer and wait for Kittle. Ayuk sure walked back up, didn't he? I guess good luck trying to pick when he goes off. Samuel's the safe play there. Fournette's Fournette. I don't think anything else is a surprise. Brait has been more steady, but Howard does have his days. Look at Gronk. Gronk was a decoy last week. I wonder if I had Gronk, I'm going to wait till I'll miss another 2-touchdown game because I didn't want this game and I may not want week 9. Godwin, Evans, and Tyler Johnson since Brown is injured. So Johnson is okay, may get a touchdown until Brown is back. Henry's gone. So McNichol, maybe. Yeah. We'll see. Swain is the thing now. I don't know. They've been switching them back and forth between these three. But I guess if you needed somebody, Swain would be it. A.J. Brown and Julio's out. This guy wasn't doing it. Westbrook. So Marcus Johnson came in. And looks like he's a deep play. You might. I think what I see is having Julio, they went to Swain more. So Swain may be in for a good week if Julio's out again. Maybe that's how we look at this. I need to reevaluate my Swain shares here. McKissick had his day. Gibson, I think, is injured, folks. Look at this. I picked up Patterson where I could. Just got this feeling that Gibson's injury is going to catch up with him. We'll see. It's worth $1 right here. Seal Jones until Logan's back. McLaurin, Humphreys, Carter. McLaurin's the only one that's scoring, is he? So I would not want to invest too deeply into these guys. If you got to, you got to. Okay. This is just who's been improving and declining. So the improvers, decliners, just kind of go through the list and see what players you're considering, who's doing what and where. It's just more to catch your attention and make you think about what's going on necessarily than being a slave to these numbers. Because there's too many moving parts to live by these differences. Just let you know what's been happening recently here. It's just letting you know that things could be moving towards these players or away from these players. So that's what I use this for, just a guidance, not a, got to do it. Here's the good wide receivers. I have picked up a few Collins. I think Gage is worth a pickup too. Bateman, of course, Mims, Agnew, Clay. I mean, a lot of these are people you probably want to include in your deep plays, and you probably want to give extra concern with some of these players here. Okay, that is my 10-cent tour for apps this week. Thank you for listening. Use data appropriately, right? And I wish you good luck, and come back, and I'll be doing my matchup lesson probably coming out Saturday. Okay, it's going to be a game tonight. Woo woo.